So let us start this particular session on training evaluation. So till last lectures we have discussed about the broader aspects about training and development, rather moreover on training process, training need, training importance, and then types of training in brief in last lecture. So this session I'll just try to cover on evaluation of that training programs, or you can say training evaluation programs. So the important thing is that why you need to evaluate a particular training program. It's very simple. When you have a certain program for a certain objective, then obviously you need to look at whether your objective is fulfilled or not. So it becomes very important to match the outcome of your training with the objective of the training. So why at all you require this training, to what extent you have achieved your goals and objectives or not. So let us begin with the basic question comes that why training evaluation. You can understand, I'm just quoting one of the example that US companies spend almost $100 billion per year in your learning and development. Now why at all? And during that pandemic situation where most of the things became online and the in-person training, not only the employees of the companies, rather non-employees of the companies, they were also requiring training on maybe that you may be, if you look at your left or right nearby neighbors, you will see that during that pandemic period, most of the people who are not aware about the YouTube channels and YouTube and online video conferencing and lecturing system, classroom management system, learning modules. So you can observe that those people have learned a lot. Now there was a need and they learned it. If a company is investing some amount in learning and development of the employees, then obviously it must reflect into the final outcome performance of organizational performance, obviously with the individual performance. So whether your training program with the so much heavy cost, especially if you look at the US or European companies and Japanese companies, they have their very heavy investment in training and development area, for learning and development. And when they invest so much of amount into this training, so obviously they must understand whether training program meets the objective as to why it was created. So what exactly evaluation is? When you look at that, yes, you need to evaluate the programs. It is simply a systematic process of analyzing the effect of training program and to assess its effectiveness. To what extent your training has become effective. Say for example, it becomes very easy that when you go to primary school, your mother give tips to you that don't eat without washing your hands. Now this guidance or input, that become crucial to understand whether this input is being practiced or not in a school. So effectiveness, whether that training information or training is being utilized, and finally the objective is fulfilled or not. So there is a systematic process of analyzing this whole process training program. It measures whether the training program meets objective as to why it was created. It becomes very easy. As we have already discussed that what are the outcomes of your evaluation of training programs. Boosting company performance. It's very simple that if you have some skill gap, you have some knowledge gap, so it will have performance issues. And if you are given training to bridge that gap, so employee performance will increase, which will boost company performance at the end of the day. And for this understanding whether employee performance is increasing or not, you need evaluation. Whether company performance increased or not, you need evaluation. Whether your training is effective or not, you have learned something after training or before training, if you see gap. So evaluation is important. Promoting employee engagement. Say for example, if you are not aware about the process of doing your job, so you will not be mentally and physically fully engaged with the company, with the job, because you cannot create interest. But if you have a skill, you will create interest and employee can be engaged. So a skilled person is more engaged as compared to the, if you don't have a skill, if there is a skill gap, means job requirement. But the very simple thing is that when you don't know how to change cylinder in your kitchen, your mother asks to change cylinder, so it becomes very difficult to engage you in changing that cylinder process. You simply say, Mom, I don't know how to change it. But if your mother will say, okay, come and I'll tell you how to change it, so mother will give you training of changing. Once you change it, become successful, next time your mother can engage you in that process. Same process as in a company. If company gives training to person and person feels easy and develop a working zone, then employee can be engaged into the company. And once employee is engaged with the work, with the company, then employee retention become easy. Employee can be retained, because if you don't have interest in that job, so most probably you may be changing your job sooner or later. Now, what are the different in evaluation, the common methods which are very common in training evaluation, so models. So very commonly used by the companies are Kirkpatrick model, and the advanced version is Phillips V model. Or rather you can say that Kirkpatrick model is based on 4 stages basically, and the 5th stage was added by Jack Phillips, and added some attributes to each stage, and then it was looked into as whether this 5th module or 5th stage, which you call our ROI, that stage is crucial. So if we look at that, we'll not be able to discuss each model in very length and breadth. But yes, if you look at that, a brief outline of the model, Kirkpatrick model is a model which is of 4 levels of evaluation. The first level is the reaction, second is learning, fourth is behavior, fourth is impact. So at first level, you need to evaluate the learner's reaction and response to training. Sometime at a very beginning stage, learner is not very keen to, or learner is not ready to receive learning, or sometime learner is very enthusiastic to receive it. So this first reaction at initial stage, that helps you in understanding the overall training effectiveness. Level 2, as per Kirkpatrick model, says that second step is to measure the knowledge and skill learned during the training. So to what extent people or employee has learned, employee has upgraded knowledge and skill, that is very important. Third step or level of evaluation is assessing the behavioral change. If after learning, employee's behavior is changed, maybe a very low degree of change which can be observed, or very high degree of change which can be observed. So this behavior is also one of the measurement criteria whether learning has been successful or not. And the level 4 talks about, or the fourth measure, that training impact on business goals and results. If your business goals, to what extent you are achieving business goals and results are improved, the final figures are changing. So you can say that impact of learning on business goals, if they are changing. Say for example, if any salesman is given training of 1 month, how to handle customers. Now in that case, after 1 month, if there comes any change in achievement of the business goals, say for example, before training the salesman was achieving a 100-figure target. Now after training, if it increases to 110 or 120, then you can say that there is an impact, or there has been an impact of training on achieving business goals, and the results have improved. And if it is not so, you can say that impact is not positive. Maybe every time it is not necessary that your impact of training is positive. Sometimes it may be negative also. So Kirkpatrick model is a very simple model which talks about that initial level you try to observe the reaction of people, how they receive training, how they react to the change. And why this reaction is important? Reaction may be in form of acceptance, reaction may be in form of resistance, or reaction may be in form of neutral. That means they are not rejecting it, refusing it, they are not very enthusiastic, or they are not very negative. So you can say that acceptance, resistance, or neutral. So if you find that initial reaction is mostly resistance, and why we say in training mostly it happens that employee starts from negative, and trainees start from negative and trainer starts from positive. And what happens? The objective of training is to upgrade knowledge or skill. So maybe that first stage, the reaction of the learners or trainees, that may be to criticize the way trainer approach or the proceeds. And if employees are basically positive, ready to accept change, then the learning quotient or learning degree would increase. So the first step, you can understand that to what extent this training module is going to be successful. Then second stage, once they are ready to accept the training, then second step, you can measure that to what extent their knowledge is upgraded or a skill is upgraded. So reaction, learning, behavior and impact, there are four basic levels of evaluation which were suggested by Kirkpatrick, whereas the Phillips V model talks about. Altogether, we are not able to discuss the detailed Phillips V model, which we will try to provide you in form of pictures and all. Jack Phillips added this fourth, return on investment. Now, what investment? Like initially we discussed that US companies invest $100 billion in a year to give training to their people. Now, $100 billion investment, whether this $100 billion investment results into return, or how much return. If you invest $100 billion and you get more than $100 billion revenue increase, upgrade, or more revenue, then you can say that ROI is positive. And if you invest in some, it is not that this evaluation simply talks about that you invest 100 crore and you don't get 100 crore, so your training module is not successful. It is not that kind of thing, because training, evaluation and performance is a continuous system. Maybe that in first year you don't get ROI, but in coming years or coming processes or coming modules, your performance improves. So what we talk about in Phillips V model, it starts from the reaction at bottom level, basic level. So you talk about the reaction or initial need, and that need, individual need, is very important to understand the reaction. The needy person at the basic stage, the person, employee or the trainees who has the need to upgrade. Say for example, sometime you are given training for promotion, so your need is to get promoted, and for that you are undergoing training. So in that case, your reaction would be positive. You would be ready to receive, or maybe sometime you are neutral, but it is definite that your reaction would not be rejection or in form of rejection. So this individual need or performance need, that is aligned with the first level of this reaction. And there are reaction objectives. You must understand what are the reaction objectives. Second, whether you need learning objectives. Learning objectives basically are aligned with, on one side, performance objectives, this way performance objective, and on other hand, you need to look at what are the learning objectives. Say for example, your learning objective may be to upgrade knowledge, or moreover maybe that to upgrade skills, and this knowledge or skill or both, that depends on the performance need. Then to what extent you are able to apply application of that learning into workplace, use it, which ultimately result in organizational needs and with application. Why it is called V model? Because on one side you have alignment of objectives, and on other side you have the business alignment with the objectives. So it is like V model. So we'll discuss about this. This is in reverse case. Reaction comes at bottom, then learning, then application, then impact, then ROI. So it is like this. We'll share that model. You can Google it. You can get that V model. Why it is called V model. And impact is studied to what extent you have achieved your business goals. Now, achievement of business goals is one thing. Jack Phillips says that you need to study and evaluate the training as an individual activity in which you have invested some amount. And if you have invested some amount into that training, so you must get return. So return on investment which you have made into that training, that must be looked into a professional activity and evaluated or taken as a measure of evaluation of model. So this ROI is a fifth new addition by Philip, and that is why it is also known as the advanced version of Kirkpatrick model or Phillips V model. So if you want to study this detail, we will share this particular picture, but try to learn about in brief theory of these two models, which will help you in evaluation modalities of training programs. So this is all about for today's lecture. Because of the time limitation, because of that certain limitations, I have not been able to in brief detail of these all Phillips V model, but we will discuss, if we get a chance, we will discuss in offline.